welcome back. We continue the news review here on Citizen TV with Senators Hassan Omar, Boni Halwale, Kimani Wamatangi and Aaron Cheruiyot from Mombasa, Kakamega, Kisumu and Kericho counties respectively. Now just before the break we were discussing this issue of doctor strike, lecturer strike, clinical officer strike, and Boni Cheruiyot, you wanted to respond to...
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point to Senator Boni, and the point is this. I agree with him that each subsequent year we have our revenue growing, but the question that we keep posing is it commensurate that every time we have a revenue growth that we keep on increasing the salaries of all public servants? And Hassan puts it rightly when he says there is a certain cadre of workers or state officers that we need to consider separately. But remember, you're dealing with human beings who at the end of the day when they go to the supermarket, they are not told that you'll buy this packet of milk for 45 shillings because you are not so properly remunerated. So at the end of the day, everybody needs to be paid equally and justifiably so. And the point that I'm making is simple. I have no set of facts, as Senator Matangi may try to, as Senator is trying to argue and say, he's imputing improper motive on the doctors. Probably he has more information to know what are the underlying currents in this track. But the point that I'm trying to make is very simple. It is not sustainable that each and every time we have our revenue growing as a country, that we keep on finding a certain group of people that you need to upgrade their remuneration. At some point, somebody has got to put down their foot and say, let's have a discussion, whether from the members of parliament to doctors to teachers and everybody, and say, let's agree, we've got a country, we've got schools to build. Remember, Senator, kids are still learning, and by
the way, Fred, you know, I said, you know, doctors are negotiating in good faith.
Yes,
they have interests. You know, they want to be paid well. They want to get fair compensation. That is their right, and it is true. Now, on the other hand, we have got government which is saying this is what we have, and that's why I said that the negotiations are always fair, true, and non-political. As far as I mean, politicians, Fred, let me tell you, politicians exploit street children.
You still insist that politicians are exploiting
I said, and mark my words, that the devil gets into these processes all the time when politicians get involved, and they at times use the back door to get in there. And in this country, in this country, politicians exploit anything in search of votes or popularity, including student children. Now, Senator Hassan Omar may be
doing it
honest,
good faith.
You know, in good faith, and Senator Mutula Kilonzo. And you know, I believe at face value from what Senator says, it is fair.
You're very rude this morning.
I mean, you know, that is as much as because you know I'm not getting
let me ask you. But Senator, 44 days.
If for any one reason, then the politics of popularity and votes would weigh in anywhere from any then. The whole process will
Let me ask Senator Wamatangi one thing. 40 days almost. No politician got involved in any big way. No person took a position. How come that issue was not resolved? Let me tell you. Uhuru Kenyatta and Munya, COG and government of Kenya needs to show leadership. They sit down and resolve this thing in a day or two. Okay. It is as simple as that.
But you know, Hassan, we need to take a look at other headlines as well. Just one comment. Hassan, the long and short of all this is that unless until the doctor strike finds room on the political agenda of this country, it will go nowhere. When IEBC issue found its way on the political agenda, it was solved. Put the doctor strike on the political agenda of this country, it will be solved. I don't think so, because you know, the minute you get people involved, you get people starting to shoot cheap political points and say Jubilee is mismanaging the doctors. They forget when this CBA was signed, Raila was the prime minister.
Well, this discussion will go on.
But you see, he wants to say who was his deputy, but doesn't want to mention who was his boss then. In charge of finance. No, but who was his boss? So he knows. Who was he reporting to?
Senators, let's move on to other headlines because, of course, the talks are going on about the doctor strike. We just wait to see what will happen to the university lecturers as well, starting today, and the clinical officers starting Sunday. But let's move on to other issues. And today is day 4 of the mass voter registration exercise that kicked off on Monday. Of course, IEBC is targeting to net at least 6.1 million new voters. But looking at the numbers the first few days, I know Kenyans are known to typically wait until the final days, but even on capacity issues, probably even the machines that are being used, 200,000 is a target, daily target, but you're only getting 82,000. Do you think, for example, because the Jubilee is already counting numbers and you said 3.3 million new voters from Mount Kenya, 1.6 from the Rift Valley, that with the current trend you can even attain half of that? Bwana Matangi.
Well, let me first acknowledge that on the whole, all of us need to do a lot because of two things. First, we must say to our people, besides CORD, besides Jubilee, that the message has got to go clear to every Kenyan that it is important for them to be able to influence the direction this country goes either way at any time by exercising the democratic right to have their voice heard and their say acknowledged by voting. We have to say this to our people, because once we get past that hurdle, then now we can talk about the politics of it. If you look at if you look at what's happening right now, and I hope it doesn't continue, we need to do a lot of work right now. The numbers
across the board,
across the board, the numbers that are coming in and the targets that IEBC are saying we want to have. I said in this forum here the other day, if you compare, for example, between Kenya and Tanzania, the population of Tanzania and the number of registered voters, that ratio does not make sense if you look at the Kenyan scenario, our population and the number of registered voters in Kenya. And this is what we have to say to our people, really. I looked at the numbers yesterday in the evening as they were being streamed by the various offices of IEBC, and my friend, it can be pretty worrying. You expect that maybe if we go on that way, we may hardly get to the targeted numbers.
And if Jubilee is worried, then the opposition should be even more worried, given that they already have the tyranny of numbers. If you're not able to register good numbers right now, then are you even hopeful come August?
I want to confirm that I hit the ground on Saturday with the first rally in Haega about mass voter registration, and I've done it consistently for the last 5 days until this morning.
Is it working?
And I want to assure Kenyans that let us tell people the truth. The first truth is that this hula baloo by politicians is that let us have more voters registered is not true. What they are saying is that may I have more voters registered in my place more than my opponent's place. Even if Kenya was to go to the election with the current number of voters, they will make a decision and we shall find a president. Number two, the lie that we don't have enough kids. I have been on the ground for these 5 days and I've established that even the few kids which are there, the clerks are idle. So if you want to increase the kids by another factor, what are the people where are the people that are going to register?
People are just reluctant.
People are just reluctant, or either they are to me the only problem I have seen on the ground is uncollected IDs. What we politicians should be speaking to, and I believe it is even in Central, a lot of people have not collected IDs. We should be asking people and asking the provincial administration release IDs. Otherwise, as far as actual registration is concerned, IEBC is there. They are waiting. They are not seeing people going to them.
But probably the capacity issues will arise when Kenyans, on the final day is probably the second week of February, when everyone now decides to go and register to vote.
Absolutely. But I wanted to pick from that point which Senator Halwale talked about, that you're telling people, no, it's not about registration. Register to vote for me. It's not about the exercise of universal suffrage. I remember I was doing this little study as to why in the last elections, Coast region, which had the potential of 1.8 million votes, only registered 1.1 million. And in terms of turnout, were at about 800,000, which means effectively 1 million registered voters, eligible voters, did not vote in the last election in Mombasa, in the coast region. And a young man told me, that no vote is my vote. Why are you telling me to vote for you just to steal and be corrupt and be my lord and be my kingpin or my queenpin? Part of voter apathy is created by your inability to deliver on the promise of nationhood, service delivery. So don't think that the lack of those targets, there might be targets in terms of numerical, and you're thinking that Kenya doesn't want to vote. He's looking at you and he says, you know, so don't think that guy who has his ID, who you are telling you will deny basic services or you will deny sex. I hear some saying very silly things. So that he can vote. That lack of registration of voting is already his vote. When he is conscious, he's saying that I cannot go to the ballot station to vote for so and so. I shall not register for a state that is based on the relationship. So what I'm saying, but I agree with you to that extent.
Absolutely.
That people should mobilize voters to register as Kenyans. Because I think this state of affairs and politics is not permanent. It will change one day, and you need to exercise and you need to speak to that.
Now, majority of these people who are hopefully IEBC is hoping to register as voters are young people. When you see a generation of young people who are apathetic to this issue of voting and electing leaders, what does that tell you?
I think the point that we keep on getting wrong is this. Already almost 3/4 or even 80% of the country has been balkanized to a certain political belief. And we get it wrong when we keep on hyping it on the media that Uhuru and Raila are targeting 6 or 9 million votes. That's not where the battle is. I think a bottoms-up approach will be much better and will yield better results if you keep on going to these people and telling them the MCA, you know, the member of county assembly, a very powerful but many of the times look down upon political position, or the person who becomes your governor depends on that vote. You will be able to change the course of your life because devolution is such a wonder. You know, I've been in the countryside and I've spent the last 3 or 4 days in Kericho. Came back only last night, and the big discussion is not about this code and jubilee that we keep on hyping in the media. It's about who's going to become my governor, who's going to become my MC. Unfortunately, it doesn't feature in the media circles. All we keep on harping about is tyranny of numbers, code base is getting excited about it, and that's where we get it wrong. People have got to be educated to know that you will only be able to determine how your life changes. The person that handles the billions that comes into your county, if you have that vote.
Well, today the new IEBC team takes over. That's Wafula Chebukati and his team of 6 commissioners. Of course, their biggest job right now is to ensure that this process continues to the logical end. Do you think their work is cut out for them, Senator Wamatangi?
Well,
in terms of getting the numbers and hitting that 6 million target.
Let me first wish them well, congratulate them, congratulate the new chairman, the new team, and tell them as loudly as I can that this country is looking at them not only in anticipation and expectation, but also with a lot of hopefulness that now they will be able to do what this country has been expecting, a major and complete turnaround in our thinking, perception and acceptability of election results. Because coming the road we have traveled all the way from 1992 when Section 2A was repealed, and again we were able to take our country back into our hands and exercise our democracy. If you look at that road and the elections we have had in between until now, we cannot say that we have had any one election where the country has felt that we have had an election and we are happy. I mean, I'm talking about across the entire divide. There has been issues all the time. And coming now to this particular election, you see these people have come into office as a result of serious agitation that particularly was started by the CORD side to have the other team go out. And when the other team that went out came in, the time they came in, they enjoyed the same goodwill this team is enjoying. And I want to say, as you've asked that question to them, is their work cut out for them? There can be no other answer. It is cut out for them, but most of all, they will have to bend backwards and stretch over. I hope by now, my friends and Senator Halwale, especially in his team, the first time they had a few verbal things to say about Chebukati and his appointment. I hope now they have been able to see that the man is worthy of the position. He's able to do his job.
And his team
and I hope now that they can let him start his work with goodwill.
Yes.
To be able to deliver
State House yesterday with his team, and they said goodbye. That is one of the things you really wanted to happen. 6 months to the elections, it has happened.
I want to pay tributes to the people who went into the streets. Some of them lost their lives, limbs and property, to force out Isaac Hassan. I want to congratulate Chebukati. The election is going to turn on two things. Not voter turnout the way we are trying to pretend through this mass agitation for more voters. It will turn on two things. The first one is that in these 6 months, Chebukati must ensure that the forensic audit that we put in the amended law, or the elections law, it must be done, so that dead voters, underage voters, ghost voters are removed from the voters register. The second thing that will turn the election is that Chebukati must ensure that voting must be electronic. Because voting, I mean, the exercise
voter identification.
I'm saying
identification.
Let me paraphrase it.
Okay.
Chebukati must make sure that when we go to the election, the exercise must be electronic, where electronics are supposed to be used. Namely, now we must make sure that BVR is identifying these people, make sure that voters are electronically identified, and that the results are transmitted electronically. That's what I mean. Now, why I'm saying this, it is because the lie that Jubilee areas had more voters than court voters will come to collapse.
Lie.
The lie. Isaac Hassan, while we were unhappy with him, he allowed 2 million people, non-existent, to vote for the president. The same people who never could vote for MCA, MP, Senator, and Governor.
Before you come,
we hope that Chebukati will stop this.
You know, I've always had
run away. I think we need to take on that point.
The thing Senator Boni doesn't know is that there are people who do not get excited per se by anybody vying for MP, for MCA, for member of National Assembly. Their only interest is governor. I've seen this happen in polling stations where I've voted before. Somebody comes in and says, my only interest is the presidency. And that could happen. So this lie that 2 million people is possible. This is a country of 40 million people. And you remember...
I will say 2 million will be over the roof. But as an issue about the incoming IEBC, there is a lot of faith and expectation in that team. All they need to do is to be a neutral arbiter, incidental or a conditioned president to a nation state, a country that is unified, a country that is peaceful, is a peaceful, free and fair election. They can be catalysts for violence. We shall write them in the books of vulgarities that these are the people who almost led to the decay of this country. They are those who are in the books of infamy. You have families to take care of. You have reputations to protect. You need to give to bequeath to your kids integrity. You know, that's one of the greatest values you can ever give to your generations and to your sons and daughters. So don't give them shame and disdain for their father and mothers, because they botched an election or helped people to steal and facilitated a process that is not independent. I see some of the IEBC commissioners who are alleged to have messed up the 2007 elections in favor of Kibaki. They walk like in squalor. You can tell they are humiliated. The public disdain for them is enormous, because ultimately the person who you put in that seat will walk away with power. You will walk away with shame. So I think what I'm trying to warn, but I have been a commissioner myself. Less of this business of attacking commissions and commissioners. I was attacked once when I was a commissioner by the brigade of William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta about the ICC. And I wish that matter went ahead, because they asked for my prosecution, they asked for my arrest and detention. They asked for everything. Respect these independent institutions, because we have weakened our democratic institutions so much so. I can tell you, a disgruntled outcome will lead, will sometimes formulate very erroneous allegations against these men and women. So Wafula Chebukati and his team, I'm wishing you well. You look at your mandate in the Constitution. You are protected by law. You are expected to be independent, and this country's peace, stability, and security rests with you.
On this new commission.
On this new commission, I think I also want to congratulate them. Of course, they've got their job well cut out for them. The only thing that I need to point out is that in December last year, you do remember that when we had a peace conference that we had all been invited as the political leaders of this country, President Uhuru Kenyatta went to Mombasa and said, defeated or if I win this election, I pledge in Kwale, I pledge that I will accept to be bound by the results. The Code Coalition went ahead and said, unless we have a new commission, they are not going to make that pledge. Now that we have a new commission, Senator Boni and Senator Hassan, please tell your principals that Kenyans are waiting for when they will make that pledge and say, we are also ready to accept defeat. Because up to date, they have never mentioned it. All we keep on hearing is that fire, march, you know, very militant language.
We can speak on their behalf even now.
Fred, you know, we need to take a break. When we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to discuss this, because we have another session in the other studio. But when we return, we'll continue this conversation, as well as the headline on the daily, the front pages of today's dailies. And that's Onyango Olo, the former TNS Secretary General, has defected to ODM, and he says he has secrets that he has carried with him. Is it true?